Welcome to Morning Joe with Tom, with your host, Thomas Chappell. Get ready to listen to real-life stories from inspiring leaders who have overcome incredible challenges to rise to the occasion. If you're ready to add some pep to your morning with a new outlook on leadership, then grab your cup of coffee. It's time to be inspired. Here's your host, Thomas Chappell.
Hey, Don. Good seeing you.
Good to see you too.
Yeah. It's not even been that long, but it seems like it's been a little bit.
Right.
So for my listeners, I want to give a quick little introduction. We kind of met through online and connected, and I just have to say that going through your LinkedIn site and your profile, 30,000 CEOs. And that's amazing. That's amazing. So
it means I'm getting old.
But what it also means is that you have a lot of wisdom to share with my listeners today. So I'm really happy about that. And I really appreciate you taking time out of something that's definitely, you're extremely busy person. So with that, I would like to kind of invite you to kind of tell my listeners a little bit more about yourself.
I kind of went renegade, and from the science field, I was doing earth and planetary physics studies, but I got involved with biomedical engineering, and so I left MIT and the Harvard lab and went to Hopkins to study humans, and they became fascinating, and they were my favorite species. So not bad for what was almost a high school dropout to end up here. And so I've really enjoyed it. Hopkins was very supportive of me looking at the high failure rates in management theory. And that's what really started the research. Got a lot of good support from Oxford for looking at some ancient manuscript work. And that's when I started publishing. And then CEOs asked me to speak. And that's when the whole thing got started. So I train about, 700 to 1,000 CEOs a year. And that's, after so many years, it starts adding up.
Yeah, just a little, right? So you said something that very interesting. You said that you studied ancient manuscripts. So how far back did you study back to kind of like look at this leadership and management?
Well, the first one was Oxford had this. They gave me copyright permission for an ancient samurai training program for leaders, and so that's what I ended up republishing, and that's what took off, because the next thing I know, I'm on CNN, then I'm on the Wall Street Journal, and then people are getting excited about it. And I was just a small adjunct faculty at Hopkins. I didn't really know what I was doing at the time. But, I started talking. People became more interested. So I left and I started self-funding my own research and began doing expeditions around the world to remote regions, because I wanted to see what were live humans doing in remote areas, because I got to learn biological leadership patterns that we all share by doing that. But then I was also able to, in the process, look at more ancient civilizations. And so that got me exposed to that as well. That's sort of how it all came together.
Oh, that's very interesting. So did you find any key elements that to today's business here in America that leaders should be taking notice of?
Yeah, I think we've gotten too seduced by our tools, and that's why I think most of the failure rates are so high. We have 35,000 business books published every year, and it's amazing. We publish more than cancer research, but at least we're making progress in cancer research. We're still dealing with 3,000-year-old problems, 5,000-year-old problems. We still try to figure it out. But I think it's because we're too seduced by our what and how, like the content and the structures, and we need goals and metrics and all this stuff, and then the how is, what sort of leadership style do you have? Do we have the right system? Do we have the right processes? So all that comes into play, and we need all those tools. But the problem is that most of the failures is you can spend. I looked at autopsies of thousands and thousands of companies, and the autopsies I just like when I was doing the book with Chris Warner, High Altitude Leadership with NBC on that K2 summit, he's pulling dead climbers off, clutching their tools. And I said, geez, Chris, I see dead companies clutching their tools. And that's where we discovered tool seduction. And the problem is it stops us from altering human decision, which is really the key. Leaders are there to alter the decisions of humans and align these decisions. And you can only do that by altering human belief. So the one course we're missing in all of our management training programs is how to alter the beliefs of humans. So that's what we started doing. And companies started taking off, and growth started going 2 or 3 times what they've ever seen. And that's when we knew we had something that had some validity to it. And then more recently, we've taken over as the strategic research support arm for the Pacific Institute. And that got started back 50 years ago. I've only been doing this 30 with Lou Tice, the late Lou Tice. And so we've been spending a lot of great time just comparing scientific notes and collaborating on our program. So it's been a fun journey, and it's just great seeing the impact on executive teams when we do this. We can't get to everybody, but we're trying.
Right. So do you think that the tools and systems and all of that are we just trying to make up for something inside the business, or are we or is it just simply forgetting the human element?
Well, I think first we're trying to sell books.
True. Okay.
And many don't have scientific validation or even field validation. I talk to some of these authors, and it's like, okay, how much did the balance sheet improve in the company? And they just look at me like, what? And I'm saying, well, if you're not making an impact, how do you even know it's working or not? But I think the hope is, I think people are getting more. We have more access to be able to look at myths. In fact, I started this blog thing about a month ago, and it just took off. People were like, "Oh my God, this is!" And I'm doing like myth busting. Boiled frog syndrome. Did that ever happen? Or the butterfly effect? What is that about? And so I'm actually pulling out the science behind it, and it's kind of fun. I'm having fun with it. I'm being humorous and joking around a lot. But yeah, so I think I think they're more open to bust myths and not just take everything that's coming out on the bestseller list, but saying, okay, where has this worked and replicated successfully? And when you look at you can go on Google Scholar and see, 70 to 90% failure rates of management theory. That's what we should be talking about that.
Right.
So that's where it got me started.
And I applaud your efforts on this, because I'm an avid reader, but I don't know how many of these business books that I've read that I kind of come back and say, okay, you apply it and it doesn't work, and you think it's all your fault. And then you're kind of coming back, and then you've talked to 5 of your other friends. They've applied the same thing because you offered the book, and it's not working for them either. So I've kind of had some speculation, and I think the community is kind of starting to kind of feel that way a little bit too, which makes us, I guess, a little more critical to some of these books coming out. And I've kind of taken the stance, well, let me see my competition do it first at this point, because if it doesn't work for them, then I might recommend it to more. But I want to make sure, again, because we're having a lot of fun, I want to make sure that we capture that link, and I put it in the show notes for the folks, because I think it's real important that they kind of come in and get to read that blog.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind. So it's kind of an off the wall question, but is all this new research that you're doing currently, are we going to find it in papers or other material that, outside of the academic, because academia puts it behind a wall that you can't get to unless you're attending the school or, something like that.
Yeah.
And also, is there a place that leaders and all can kind of follow you on this research journey?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're doing a couple of things. One is, like I said, we're linking up with the Pacific Institute, and we're incorporating a lot of this together in our program. So, implementing it in the field is one way people are getting exposed to it. The other are just the books. I've got a number of articles written over the past 10 or 20 years. I lost count. There's a number of we're trying to get a YouTube series up, but I think what's interesting is I'm trying to get more books out, and that like in October we should be releasing winners and losers, which did an autopsy of looking at why did people lose and why did people win, and a lot of it is that we don't know how to lose powerfully. So we started this movement to say, can we teach each other how to lose powerfully? And in that's really the foundation of all great entrepreneurship. So our first book is going to be for entrepreneurs, and that these could be single individuals trying to start their own company, or small companies that have been founded, or somebody in a large company that wants to induce more innovative entrepreneur thinking. And we bust myths. We have about some myths there that people I think will enjoy seeing busted and replaced with what really does work. From what we did and looking at dead companies and live companies. I mean, people don't realize that every successful entrepreneur, we write about what they did right, but when you talk to them personally, it's a history of failures.
Right.
Right. Mistakes, and it's how they were being in those failures and mistakes, which actually created the power that they had as entrepreneurs.
Right. Yeah, I can see that, because so whenever I was in the Marine Corps, you didn't get to choose who you were in the unit with, right?
Right.
Whoever your team was what your team was made up of, and you all trained hard to work together as a solid unit.
Right.
I think one of the things that I found was, even though, I'm not trying to bust the myth on right person in the right seat on the bus, but sometimes companies that really don't have the capability, you fight with who you can afford to bring in.
Right.
And then you have to at least on my level and some other folks' level, that's what I've kind of seen has played out. And then you work on it in the future as you get better. You work on the future on getting the talent that, whatever talent you can afford into the future. So
yeah, and I learned a lot from the military when I was doing a lot of this research, because my book was making rounds at the Pentagon, and I went on really cool behind the scenes tour. It was a group of us that had been selected from the press around all the military operations. It was an incredible 2 or 3 weeks, but I learned that what is happening is these after action reviews.
Mm-hmm.
Which essentially is a form of teaching us how to learn from losing,
Mm-hmm.
And then the team gets better and better. And the more that they're able to process, what went well, but what were the mistakes? Like where could we improve? I mean, did you find that the experience?
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually apply that, in my business today, and I apply it with clients,
Perfect.
Yeah. So, I even apply it sometimes during some of the training that I do as well. I'll ask questions about, hey, what was the fuzzy bits? What was the clear bits that you could take for action?
Yeah.
Kind of do a quick little down and dirty autopsy on that and figure it out.
Yeah.
So, that I'm really intrigued by your research and what you're doing. I mean, this is like hallelujah kind of stuff. Because I have been waiting. I like I said, I've been kind of jaded being in the consulting world for so long, and all that. Yeah, it's just another book. But now I finally hear somebody that's kind of saying, hey, I've had these thoughts in the back of my head and just wondered, but you're actually going out and proving some of the things that a lot of us are kind of thinking. So, I really appreciate that, because that's only going to make us better.
Yeah. And it really, it wasn't my fault. It was your fault, because
Yeah.
those people like you that were coming up to me, when I was teaching at the grad school there at Hopkins, they were complaining about these things. I wasn't aware, of it being a problem. But as I started hearing these complaints and frustrations, and I just thought, some students asked me, could it be biological? And that's what really started me on this journey to say, what is it about our biology that affects our leadership? And could that explain why the failure rates are so high and the cynicism is so high around management theory? And so that's why I got here.
That's very interesting. That is very interesting. Yeah, I mean, you have birds that, are born, but they couldn't have had the experiences, but yet they know certain things about what to eat, where to fly to, butterflies, all that stuff. So that's very interesting. Yeah, wow. So you got me thinking on this podcast.
Good. I hope we never stop thinking. No, it's funny because when I'll go to remote regions. I'll go to areas of considered to be lost civilizations, and I look at how they're organizing, and they're organizing very similar to how we're organizing, and yet we've had no contact or cross communication or education with them. So I find that fascinating to see how humans organize and realize, this is part of our species. This isn't something that came out of some MBA program. This is us as humans. And the more we can get in touch with that and start triggering in a positive way our biology, we can actually we can have much higher performance results. Sales, culture, you name it. I've just been able to observe CEOs putting this in play and just seeing the results of what they did. It's been fascinating.
Yeah. So do you think any of it could possibly also be around, you said technology, but I've experienced certain cultural changes that seem to your phone is within arm's reach of you all the time, right? And I've kind of recognized that the time that they can spend on any one thought is seconds versus, and I mean, and I realize that executives are very busy people, and you got to respect their time, right? But my challenge is that I've seen that they spend so little time, it seems like, that they don't get comfortable with their thoughts before they're off to another, they're switching.
Mm-hmm.
So is there a possibility that we're kind of dumbing ourselves down at this point with the use of the technology and lack of communication?
I think it could go two ways. One is some sense, sometimes people can use technology or some fancy management theory, and we find that they end up abdicating their leadership to this system. Mm-hmm. And so in one sense, we're dumbing down leaders if they're just trying to use these tools to do what they should be doing in the first place. Right. So they're kind of shutting down their thinking. And that's why I see such a high failure rate of these systems coming into companies that they spend millions of dollars on, and they don't work. And the systems were there to support us, not to let us abdicate our leadership. On the other hand, we're kind of getting smarter, I think, because of the speed that's available. Like as a joke, my MIT frat brothers, we get together online. We were debating when ChatGPT came out. So I was one of the early adopters, and of course we were all learning AI back in the 70s. So just being born. So I thought, what if everybody's arguing about the humanizing of AI. What if we asked AI how it would humanize us?
Ooh.
And nobody had ever put that question in before. So I ended up publishing a book. It was a joke. I just did it myself, and I published it myself and did the cover myself. But I went in and I asked it, and I said, how would you upgrade humans? Because we're trying to upgrade you. It was fascinating. I mean, a lot of it came back with standard stuff that you probably see, but it was absorbing, terabytes of data that we've been publishing. Right. But it had some things I was sort of surprising, like, we should be having better relationships. And I thought that's interesting. We're not thinking about relationships as a part of our personal development, but maybe we need to do more of that. So, and the whole book took like, I think 25 minutes to write. But the human involved, it came 2 weeks. But the point is I began to realize it's a great graduate assistant, so by speed, I mean, I could have went to the Hopkins library down the street and spent, 2 weeks just going through the publications and the research and all that. Or I could have sent a grad student to do it for 2 weeks and then debrief with me for a day and a half. Okay.
Right.
Or I could have ChatGPT do it and give it to me in 20 minutes. So now I've saved 2 weeks, 10, 20. Like, for instance, people want to get my samurai quotes. It's like, and I was working with, the Pacific Institute, and they say, yeah, it would be great to put some of this out as like a daily quote on the samurai. I'm thinking, oh my God, that'll be taking me 2 weeks to like just go through my book. And I thought, wait a minute, I got my grad student with ChatGPT. I went in there, and within, I was at a hotel bar working, and probably within an hour, I had like 200 quotes ready to go. So the point is, I think we can use this to get smarter and offload some of the mundane stuff that we really don't need to do. And I noticed something interesting. We had the same reaction we're having now about the fears of this technology when, and I may be a lot older than you, but there was a time we had this thing called the calculator. That was
I know that very well. I come from the punch tape days.
Okay, great. Perfect. So everybody went into an uproar, like, oh man, you can't bring that into your classroom. You can't bring that in. It's going to dummy us down. We're going to be stupid. And it was like this anti-calculator thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we're not going to learn math anymore. And maybe some of us aren't learning math, but it's not because of a calculator. And all of a sudden it was, hey, it's a tool. We're still going to learn math. Here, do this problem with a pencil and a paper. But once you get it down, you don't need to spend an hour doing it, get a calculator. So I think I'm hoping the tool ends up like that to support us. Now, I certainly wouldn't connect it to any take control of military operations.
Right. Yeah, that might not be so smart.
I think those mornings, but it is helpful. I mean, in applications of warfare, we're seeing it today with some of the war in the Ukraine. But I think it could be very positive for us to spend time getting smarter if we know how to use it well.
I'm a huge AI guy, so and spent a lot of time around it, and even worked with the government in and around it.
Cool.
Common popular one is Einstein within the government. So they have that one that's really good. Well, questionable of good. What subjective is what good is, right? But yeah, I don't think people just really realize how much AI is integrated into the system that we call America today. Before it became real popular, I think ChatGPT just kind of really brought it out in the open. I mean, when people didn't really understand a lot of machine learning concepts other than, hey, I was trying to pick my lotto numbers kind of stuff, right? I mean, I think if you kind of see that, you'll see people trying to do that. There's dozens of YouTube videos on that. So, but anyhow, how do you see leaders? Because I always say you don't have to cut jobs just because you brought AI into your company. But how do you see the dynamic of the AI to business blend with modern day businesses today?
Well, I think like any tool that we do bring in, I think we need to make sure that it is impacting performance, competitive, strategic performance of the business. Instead of throwing another tool at it, and then we die with the tool in our hands. And I think it's hard for leaders to step back and say, what does winning really mean, and how do we do it? And that's really the essence of a strategic thought. What does winning mean for us as a company, and how do we win? And so all of our work and culture and structure and leadership style and all that has to, I think, play to support that. And if it doesn't, then don't just chase that object. Just bring in what you can bring in. Like in my speech, I do like a 3-hour CEO workshop and a workshop. Sometimes I'll go in with executive teams, and I'm like, we're teaching leadership wrong because we're teaching about leadership styles. Like, what style leader are you? Are you this level? Are you that level? Are you? And we have a lot of books on different styles of leadership. And I'm thinking a lot of autopsies I've done on dead companies, they all had all the great leadership training and styles. So obviously it didn't work. And I said, we're doing it backwards. I think it's about speed. I think you have to lead your humans to, can you make fast decisions? Can you respond and adapt quickly? Can you learn fast? I mean, it's about speed, and then back up into what style do we need to support that versus vice versa, you see.
Right.
And the same thing with AI. It's just what strategically is needed, and does this support it or not? And if it doesn't, don't get seduced by the latest craze, because they're going to come out every year.
Oh yeah. I mean, since ChatGPT, there's been like hundreds of applications suddenly come out. I saw one somebody sent me yesterday. Write your proposal in quarter of the time kind of situation. And you look at it, and I'm kind of like, and they all have the same thing. They're all using API from ChatGPT type, Jim. But I think whenever I'm looking at it for my team, I'm looking at it from, does it make my team better, better and faster? Are they able to be more productive? Because I have a slightly different philosophy than some businesses. I'm not looking for you to fill out an 8-hour day.
Right.
If you give me what's equivalent within that 8-hour day in 4 hours, 6 hours, whatever it is, I paid you for 8 hours. So you accomplished what my goal was. And I think that we have to kind of look at that, and it's kind of like forgetting the pay per hour, but pay for the outcome. That's how I kind of treat my team is. And so if I can get more powerful outcomes by letting them use the tools to make things better.
Yeah.
Grammarly is a great one.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
It improves writing. Emails are much better, things of that nature. So
and there was an article published. I was just flying in this morning from a client in Pittsburgh, and I saw that there was an article, don't ask me where, I was skimming, that Apple has a different way of leading people around that kind of concept that you mentioned. It's like the more that you can produce to get the results, that extra time is yours. In other words, there's an interesting style difference in terms of cultural beliefs around what work means. So I think you're onto something.
Yeah, if you happen to have that article, give me the link and I'll put it out there too, because I think it's important for folks to kind of understand that. And I've been trying to get that pushed to the forefront for a lot of years, because it just doesn't make sense, that we're still kind of basing it off on, the era of Ford moving forward to today, and it's the model not changed that much. Right. He gave a lot of benefits that wasn't there originally, but now I think people are kind of reaching a point where, I do want you to, if you have a healthy family, then we have healthy citizens coming into this country and being more productive, and you're able to concentrate better. So
yeah, something I like it. No, yes, if I can't find that, I'll pop it over.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Don, I really appreciate today, and I definitely want to respect your time. I know you're extremely busy, and apparently you just flew in today, so I want to give you a chance to kind of recover from that. But I want to thank you for that. But I want to kind of give you the last word here. So my last question would be, what are the contact resources so that people could reach out to you and all? And I will put those into the show notes, but if you could just let folks know.
Yeah. If you go to sagaleadership.com, we stole it from the Vikings, the SAGA, sagaleadership.com. We're trying to put all of our stuff there. We got the blog there. The new book will be coming out, so we have a launch page there for that. and in my other books as well, and the stuff that we're doing with the Pacific Institute. So it's kind of my playground where I'm going to be focusing most of my work. So thanks for that.
Okay. And as parting today, is there anything that last minute items that you would like to share with leaders that kind of give them something to think on and chew on?
I think keep learning. That means keep making mistakes. Correction reviews.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Dom. You have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you on the other side.
All righty. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to Morning Joe with Tom. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss an episode. See you next time for more real-life stories and inspiration on Morning Joe with Tom.